All right. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Facebook Pixel, Conversions, Traffic, and More. This is the third lesson, Custom Conversions and Events. I hope you've learned quite a bit here in the first two lessons. I will tell you, this has probably been the most difficult lesson I've ever had to put together, just because it goes down the rabbit hole of getting very technical very fast, and we'll get to that in a bit, but I just want to warn you that some of this may not apply to you, but we'll get to all that here in a little bit. But just know that I will have lots of supporting documentation as well that should also help you when I send that to you with the replay. All right, so how's this going to work? Be 60 or so total minutes. I think this week we're looking at 45 to 50 minutes. And first, though, we'll start. It's 45 to 50 minutes for the actual presentation. But we'll start with the last week's assignment. I'm sorry, that should be assignment number 2. Last week's assignment. And see if you have any questions on that. We'll get to that first. We'll get to today's presentation. And then to today's assignment before we get to the final Q&A. So ask those questions as you've got them. Of course, we will be recording. Allow up to 24 hours. Usually it's going to be ready within 3 to 4 hours. Actually, these videos, just so you kind of get a back room view of what happens, I don't like to send out like the GoToWebinar replays because those are low quality. Sure, that would make it really, really fast. I could do it quickly, but I record my desktop on these with ScreenFlow. That takes quite a while to export that file. I then import it into Vimeo. All of that's going to take a couple hours or so. But I will let you know when it's ready. It will be emailed to you. And otherwise, make sure you go to powerhittersclub.com. That's where you access the first two lessons, and you'll be able to access today's lesson as well when it is ready. So last week, we talked about traffic and website custom audiences. Really one of my favorite topics. I mean, I tell you all the time that targeting is the number one reason for success or failure. So wouldn't be surprised if my favorite topic is talking about website custom audiences. But last week's assignment was to, first of all, create a website custom audience for all of your website visitors over the last 180 days. Second, create a website custom audience for a specific blog post. Third, create a website custom audience for a category of content on your website. Fourth, create a website custom audience for visitors to a landing page. Fifth, create a website custom audience for visitors to a confirmation or thank you page. So that's basically after performing some sort of conversion, so a page that they wouldn't see again. Sixth, create a website custom audience for those who visited 5 or more times in the last 180 days. And then create a website custom audience for your top 5% most active visitors. So before we get to today's plan, let's just make sure there aren't any other issues. Jason, just to answer your question, just reach out to info@johnloomer.com, and Tracy should be able to help you out there too. So John asks, can you combine audiences? For example, you developed a website custom audience for a blog post that discusses a specific topic, so topic X. You also developed a website custom audience for a different topic, but is very similar to X, call it topic Y. Can you combine these two audiences into one to promote a common ground topic to the combined audience? So yeah, now there are two things you can do there, John. First thing is you can create one audience, because remember, you can add multiple variables in that audience. So multiple URL contains, right? So topic X, we'll just say topic X, for example, is Facebook. So any URL where Facebook is in the URL, right? And then you can do an OR as well. So you can add another variable in there. Second could be, I don't know, Twitter, just whatever. So then that'd be one audience to include anyone within either who read a page that included either one of those two things. That's one way to do it. It's probably not how I would do it, but you could create two separate audiences, one for Facebook, one for Twitter, or one for topic X, one for topic Y. Then when you create your campaign, create your ad set, do your targeting, you just add both custom audiences and it would include anyone who read either of those two things. Now, it's not an and statement, not and logic. I don't think that's what you're looking for, though. It's or logic. Facebook does have that logic available through the API, not through if you're looking for the and logic. So basically the crossover between the two. But usually you need a third-party tool for that. Yeah, unfortunately, John also says I don't have the advanced mode option in my Facebook create audience options. Wondering if you need to have spent X dollar amount on Facebook before this option appears. Or if the other students have the same issue and if there's an easy way to get it. All good questions. I was encouraged a couple weeks ago when someone told me that they suddenly had it. And it was like a brand new thing to them, and something I've had since May of last year. So when they had it, I assumed that more people must have had it. I really don't believe it's a dollar thing at all, because actually the person who mentioned that is someone who manages lots and lots and lots of accounts, and so they actually spend more than I do, by probably quite a bit. And they just got it, and I've had it since May. So I like to say there's an easy way to get that stuff. Unfortunately, it's usually a matter of either making sure you know somebody, a good ad rep, or you just wait. And I know that's the frustrating part. So Rachel asked, can I ask questions now on custom audience and purchasers? Yeah, this would be the time when we're talking about the assignment for last week. We're talking about remarketing, all the website custom audience stuff. I can answer those types of questions now. Anything that's talking about custom conversions and events, though, let's wait on that. Rachel said, I tried using Pixel Caffeine with WooCommerce, but I can't get it to define purchasers properly. Perhaps my logic is off. I'm not sure specifically what your issue would be there. I would absolutely reach out, though, to their customer service, because they've got some good, smart people in there. Keep in mind, too, that it is, I think it's in beta. If it's not beta, it's just brand new. So there could be some bugs with it. I don't use WooCommerce. I actually installed WooCommerce just for the purpose of testing this out, but I don't have anything to test against to make sure that works properly. So I would reach out to them. It could be an unknown problem for them. Caesar asked, do these audiences grow in time? So once you create a certain criteria and more people comply with the criteria, will the number grow as weeks go by? I understand the 180-day limit. Do you renew your criteria? Yeah, this is dynamic, Caesar. So will it grow? Grow is an interesting question. It won't necessarily grow, understand, because it's a dynamic window. And let's just assume you're using a 180-day window. And so that means in addition to people who are visiting today being added, people who haven't visited in 6 months, 180 days, are falling off who were on it before. So that's why some people will be confused, like that the number stays the same. Shouldn't this be going up? Not necessarily. The number could be staying the same. It could be going down, depending on when the concentration of visits happen. But no, you do not need to update anything at all in that case. So Leanne said that she put out a request. She reached out to facebook.com/business. So anyone who's not familiar with that, go to facebook.com/business. There's a link for support. And then there's actually a chat support in there that if they're available, they'll answer. And she said they put in a request for it, for that advanced mode. So that's encouraging. Hopefully you actually get it. Rachel said, I basically just wanted to create an audience of purchasers for product X so I can exclude them. I'm actually about to show you a screen that this is the way that I think you create those. That said, worst case scenario, if you simply have a thank you page for that product, which I don't know if you do or not with WooCommerce, it's really basic. In that case, you would just create a website custom audience for that specific thank you page. The product itself would be less important in that case. But check that out. Oh, no response from Espresso yet, huh? They're typically pretty good. I'd also always make sure to reach out on Twitter or Facebook as well. So Dick says, I had it in time on website. Oh, in the time on website option, and I'd even created a couple of audiences with it. However, I don't have it now. Contacted Facebook this morning, and they said to send feedback and ask for it. I haven't heard anything. Not that this is your problem, but I would always make sure you're looking at the right ad account too, because Facebook loves to switch ad accounts on me. But anyway, just a heads up. Han says, it's not yet clear to me how to use website custom audience when running ads. Can we expect that prices go down compared to lookalike targeting? Yeah, I mean, typically, assuming you're getting good high quality traffic, and especially if you're zeroing in on good high quality traffic with relevant advertising. But you create an audience, and then within your ad set, there's a text box for custom audiences. There was a screen for that, a slide for that last week. I know it was just like one thing, but that's where you determine who you're targeting. But absolutely, I've seen huge differences between targeting, say, lookalike audiences and people who have visited my website before. That's the big advantage. And it's logical why. Like someone who actually knows you and is reading your stuff, is loyal, has opted in before, whatever, is much more likely than someone who's never heard of you before. Wow, we have lots of questions already. Let's see here. Serini asked, are you familiar with Connect Explorer's retargeting pixel? I am not, unfortunately. Yeah, Rachel says, can you go over how to do a custom audience for a purchaser again? My confirmation page says order received, but that doesn't differentiate between products. So yeah, that's exactly what I was referring to. So if your thank you page doesn't differentiate between products, then you can't do it with the simple website custom audience. But that's where Pixel Caffeine will come in handy if it's working. And I actually have a slide that'll come up eventually on how I think that's done. Now you might be doing the exact same thing, and it's just not working. So that'll be something to sort out with Pixel Caffeine. So Rachel, there'll be, and we'll get to it in a bit. I won't dwell on that. Sarah asked, what if the current pixel will be deleted? Will the custom audience be stopped? So this should all be relevant to your current ad account. So really, you shouldn't still have the old pixel, I'd hope. I hope you have the new pixel on your site, and all those audiences should continue to be usable. Yeah, so Tracy Lee says, we have pixels placed on our booking and reservation sites, but as a dynamic URL that changes during each step of the checkout process. Is there any way to still track these dynamic URLs with the pixels? So that would be, I think when we talk about these events and some is being dynamic, that's where you need to use today's lesson. And it's also going to depend upon what your software is. There might be some very specific instructions based on the software you're using as well. So to be clear too, and Tracy Lee said, and those URLs are unique to each guest, I'm sure, but there are also specific portions of that URL that are probably not unique to the guest, that are common depending on what page they're on. I'll get to that one later. That wasn't really about last week or this week. Jackie says, lookalike audiences only look to be relevant to target on a national level. It's not possible to do it at regional, state level, is it? Well, yeah, actually. So don't understand, you're creating a lookalike audience. It could be for a country. It could be for a region. They're actually doing a bunch of different things with that all of a sudden recently. But when you create your ad set, you could say focus only on people who are in a certain state, certain region, certain city. So that the audience itself doesn't mean that you can only target people who are anywhere in that country. Hans said, how to remove the old pixel, easy to do. Yeah, you have to search it out. So you have to know where you put it, and just delete it and add the new one. But that's where using that, I think it was in the first lesson we talked about that very briefly, the migration tool. Facebook has a pixel migration tool that could help too. Catherine says, well, if custom audiences are smaller than 100 with a budget of only $33 per ad, is custom audience the right way to go? Well, you're never going to spend anywhere close to $33 per ad. And look, having an audience of 100 people or less is not necessarily a bad thing. Just understand you're going to be spending pennies or quarters as opposed to dollars per day on that. And you probably don't want to optimize for conversion in that case, or even any kind of action. Instead, probably want to use the reach objective. But I feel like that's a whole other different topic too. But so to answer your question, you've got to keep in mind what a relevant or reasonable budget should be based on audience ad size. And it's only going to cost a few dollars usually for anywhere from, I don't know, a couple dollars to $10 to $20 per 1,000 impressions. So if you're reaching fewer than 100 people, kind of do the math there. All right, so hopefully that's all we got for last week's assignment. But if I missed anything, you can feel free to ask additional questions on that as well. Maybe we might be able to get to it at the end. I feel like today, we'll get to it, but there's going to be a lot of open questions. I guarantee it, just because it's really difficult to provide specifics in some cases, and I'll explain why. So today's plan, we'll talk about the tracking problem. We'll dig into custom conversions. That's the easy part. And then we'll get into events. That's where it starts getting complicated. We'll talk about ad reports really briefly as related to custom conversions and events. We'll talk about what's next, get to your final questions, and then we'll move on here. All right, so some basic assumptions before we get going. That you're a client, have a website, the Facebook pixel has been added to your website, and the conversions occur on your website. It gets a little bit more difficult if it's on a third-party site. Could be a lot more difficult depending on how it's set up. Hopefully they've got some places where you can inject code and things like that. If not, it's about to get a lot more difficult. So some key takeaways I want you to have after today is to understand how to use custom conversions. And honestly, for most of you, or maybe not most, at least half, I would say, custom conversions may be what you use primarily, and don't get bogged down in the complexities of events. But you should also know how to understand, I want you to also understand how to use events and understand whether custom conversions or events or both are best for you. All right, so first of all, the tracking problem. So do you know how many sales are occurring on your website right now as a result of ads? And I know a lot of people like to guess, and I know there's a trend because I've been running these ads, or I use Google Analytics, and it's not enough. That's why you're here, I think, is figure out how to do this. And do you know how many registrations are occurring? Do you know the details? So like which product, how many, and the value that are coming as a result of those conversions. All these things we can start sorting out as thanks to the pixel and custom conversions and events. So both custom conversions and events can help solve this. But what you need will depend on your business and your website. So before we continue, kind of warned you a little bit already, but the further we go, the more technical it's going to get. Okay? But just understand, it's possible that you won't require a highly technical solution at all. And honestly, my website, I am one of those people. So for the technical portion, this is where it's going to get potentially frustrating for some people, but variations are going to exist from site to site in terms of how you set that up and how you go about it. So there are a lot of details that will apply to everybody with those events, but in some cases there will be variations too. But I will be providing, understand, I'm going to be providing some important links with the replay that'll help too. That's where I'd start if you still have open questions. After that, especially if you use, which I think is going to be the case for most people, if you use events, it's probably because you have an e-commerce site and you probably are using certain software to manage that. So the next place I would go was their FAQ to understand how specifically you should be using events with that software. Okay. So let's start though with custom conversions. So what are custom conversions? Really, it's a I've been talking about all this complexity and technical, this and that. Well, custom conversions, very simple way of tracking conversions. And if you're lucky, that's all you'll need. So assuming Facebook pixel is on your site, no extra coding needed whatsoever. It's a lot like creating a website custom audience. And if you did that last week, you're in luck. It's really the same type of process for custom conversions. So with custom conversions, you basically tell Facebook the URL of a conversion. So a conversion page would, and I think you're familiar with this, a conversion page would be, and actually we talked about this in a way with website custom audiences, because I had you create website custom audiences for those thank you pages and confirmation pages. That's great for targeting. But custom conversions then can be created out of that thank you page or confirmation page to notify Facebook that a conversion has happened. So then you can track conversions when you're running ads, and you can optimize for those conversions when you're running those ads. So every time the conversion page is hit, so that thank you page, conversion page, confirmation page, a conversion is then reported. Obviously, Facebook will only report it in the ads if someone who has seen your ad or clicked your ad is the person who hit that conversion page. You can also provide the conversion value in order to track your ROI. So understand this isn't just for a product you're selling. You really should be applying this for registrations as well. If you know that the typical registrant is worth 50 cents or $1 or $2 or $5 or whatever it is, that's what you should put in that value. So then you know when I've spent $500, but I've gotten $2,000 in value in return. The one limitation here, at least for now with custom conversions, is that you can only have 40 per ad account. And so with custom conversions can be used, now they can't be used for targeting. That's why we have website custom audiences. They're used for tracking, so meaning Facebook will report how many conversions happened as a result of your ad. And for optimization, meaning Facebook will, when you have a conversion objective, Facebook will have you specify what specific conversion you want to optimize for. So Facebook will be showing to people within your audience that you're targeting, but the specific people within that audience who are most likely to perform that action. So I've talked a lot about and kind of warned you already. So I've talked about how simple the website, the custom conversion is. Kind of warned you how complex and potentially technical the events can get. So the immediate question might be, can you use only custom conversions? And that may be. So basically answer these questions. Do you have 40 or fewer total products or opt-ins on your website? If you do, it's maybe. Can you pinpoint the conversions entirely with the success pages? So somebody else brought up earlier that they don't have a unique confirmation page, thank you page, based on the product. So in that case, you need more than just custom conversions, right? But if you have a unique thank you page for every product, or you can create one if it doesn't exist now, for every product, every opt-in, and you know everything about that transaction based on visiting that thank you page, you know what the value of it was, there are no variables in there, then custom conversion is good for you. So our checkout's simple or complex. So does someone just make one single purchase? Or does someone say, okay, I want this, I want that, I want to change the size of this? Are there a bunch of variables? Is it dynamic? Is there a shopping cart, right, where you have all this different stuff that you're in there customizing? So if you have that shopping cart, complex, dynamic, variable experience, custom conversions probably aren't, unfortunately, the best route for you. Now, I, however, primarily use custom conversions. Obviously, I have to know how to use events as well. But understand, I don't have an e-commerce site. My site, I've got a handful of primary products. I think I'm selling right now 2 different memberships, and right now I'm only selling one training program, and I'm selling one-on-ones. That's 4 products that I'm focusing on right now. So that's not complex at all. I have fewer than 40 total products and opt-ins. I have several different ways to register for things, but well under 40. And I don't have dynamic buttons and other measurement holes, meaning there's not a case where someone can just push a button and it doesn't redirect them to a page, and they had made a purchase or made an opt-in or something like that, where that's a measurement hole, quote unquote, that you couldn't measure with a custom conversion. And basically, for my website, full tracking is possible entirely with the thank you pages. I know what the value of that transaction was. I know exactly what you bought or you registered for, just based on your browsing habits. And I also don't use dynamic ads due to that small number of products. So I create lots of website custom audiences and do things manually. Don't have a need for dynamic ads because I don't have dozens or hundreds of products. So as a result, just using my website as an example, if your website is comparable, then custom conversions would probably be your focus. All right, so we'll start there. And so everyone should have a use for custom conversions. But to get there, first of all, within your ads manager, your business manager, whatever you want to call it, you'll find custom conversions under measure and report. You also have this direct link at facebook.com/ads/manager/custom-conversions. And it looks a little something like this. And again, it looks quite a bit like that process for creating a website custom audience. We're going to create a rule that we're going to include traffic that meets the following conditions. So within that, we can do URL contains, URL equals, or if you have events on your site, you'll also have event pop up. Now, just to avoid confusion there, it's rare that you can use that event option for creating a custom conversion. Okay, because in most cases, you just use the event. But the time, I'll get to it in a minute, but that's really going to be for your custom events, which is something that will be pretty rare. But the first option is URL contains, so you can do things like my product thank you or my product confirmation. If there are multiple confirmation pages they may visit to satisfy this rule. So when you use URL contains, though, be careful, okay? Because you could potentially include more than one URL by mistake. And maybe pages that aren't actually confirmation pages. Lots of times people will have inflated numbers and they wonder why, this is one of those reasons. So for example, if I do URL contains thank you, thank-you, actually if I take out that dash, otherwise that doesn't really make sense. If it's just thank-you, that would include stuff like my product-1-thank you, my product-2-thank-you, and why you should say thank you if there's an article saying that. So that's just an example of how it can potentially pull in multiple pages if you use your URL contains and you're not very careful about how you use it. So just kind of think about that before you do. But you can also do URL equals. One potential problem with that is, if you've got people can access your site from both HTTP and HTTPS, you might want to add both. Or if sometimes it can appear as www and sometimes it can appear without it, it's not clear whether Facebook's going to pick up both of those as well. So just something to keep in mind, that URL equals is much, much more restrictive. In general, I just use URL contains, but I'm just careful about how I use that. And then you do have event. So when you select an event, you could do page view purchase, but you could also just, you already have an event for purchase. So it doesn't really make sense to also create a custom conversion. I mean, unless someone can think of something that I'm not thinking of. The primary reason you have this is if you create a custom event, that you will also need to create a custom conversion for it. Okay, and we'll get to custom events later, but I think that's going to be a pretty rare case. So using event for custom conversions, again, it's necessary when creating custom events, and you may not need that otherwise. So that whole process with events, you might, if you were to select purchase, you can then you enter the value and currency and all that kind of stuff. But in most cases, you're probably not going to do that. I guess now that I think about it a little bit more, I guess the one exception to that could be you could create a custom event, a custom conversion for that specific purchase product then in this case. All right, so you can create a custom conversion for, not only did they hit that purchase event, but it was this content name, or for this value, or for this content type. So I'll backtrack on that a little bit. I guess you could use that for other purposes. So in this case, we can create an event, a custom conversion for the purchase event where the value is $297. So how to create custom conversions? So first of all, you want to enter the confirmation URL. Then you want to define the category of the conversion, and then enter a description, which is optional. So, and you can also provide a conversion value. So when you do the URL contains, I gave the example of my product, thank you, and I decided that's a purchase. So I have to choose the category of conversion next. And then I can provide a description. Otherwise, I just put in the value and I go ahead and create it. And then you can use that for tracking and optimization. We'll talk more about that next week. But the main thing is that you actually create these things. You create a custom conversion for each of your products if you've got a small number, each of your opt-ins if you've got a small number of opt-ins. All right, so that takes us to events. Let me get a quick drink of water here. So quick warning here. Things are about to get very technical very quickly. And so it's really careful about this. There's just a lot of codes and variables and stuff. And I don't want to overwhelm you. It's not like you're going to walk away remembering all these codes and variables. But I want you to have a general understanding of the structure and how that works. I also want you to ultimately understand how to access some of this information later. So this is all going to be within the replay notes. So that you can dig in there a little bit more too. But it's also kind of difficult to provide specific instructions in some cases. So I understand there are a lot of specific instructions here, but in terms of exactly how you'd implement it in some cases, given the variations of the way websites are set up, and if you have different variables for for your database and things like that. So some, most, or all of this may actually not be necessary for you. So just be patient here. Don't be overwhelmed, because if you have a site like mine, it's not that important in the first place. Just a quick reminder that helpful links of guides will be provided when this replay is ready. So what are events? Again, assuming the base pixel of your code is already on your website, you install additional code on the conversion pages to indicate an event occurred. Now, not to be confused with the old conversion tracking pixel. That's not what this is. It's indicating a certain event happened. So was it a purchase? Was it a registration? Is it a lead? What is it? And Facebook provides 9 predefined or standard events to choose from. We'll get to those in a minute. And so this is, again, for tracking and optimization. It's not for creating website custom audiences and for targeting, but for actually tracking your conversions and optimizing. So you can also, though, add parameters to these events to measure more granular actions. So not only did a purchase happen, but a purchase of this particular product, and the value of this product was X, etc. So then you can also create custom events that more accurately fit your business. If none of those 9 standard events don't fit, I mean, you'd have to give me a good use case for why you'd use a custom event. I think in most cases the 9 cover most bases. And also, if you want to create or run dynamic ads, then you need events running on your website. Otherwise, that may not work. So later, yes, we will talk about dynamic ads next week. We'll get into that a little bit. Initially, I was thinking I could talk about that today. It's just that this gets so complicated fast. And dynamic ads is a beast in itself that I wanted to wait and hold off on that until next week. So what are events? Much, much more complicated, depending on how far you go, than custom conversions. Because really in its basic form, and we'll talk about there are 3 levels of it. Its basic form, it's not that complicated. But once you start adding in variables, it gets complicated pretty fast. So it's possible, though, you can get by only with custom conversions. But events go from basic, so meaning just kind of notifying Facebook that this is a conversion, or this is a purchase, or this is a lead, or a registration, or more advanced where you provide a bunch of variables in there as well that Facebook can track and report. So Facebook provided this quick comparison between the two. We've covered some of this already, but with standard events, it's created by adding to the Facebook pixel base code, whereas with custom conversions, there's no extra code required. Standard events is customized with parameters, basically variables, parameters, whereas with custom conversions, it's just a matter of using granular URL rules. And you got reporting in both cases, but for standard events, it's aggregated reporting, and custom conversions, it's separate reporting. And then for events, it's compatible with dynamic ads, whereas if you want to run dynamic ads, you can't do that just with custom conversions. So do you need events? Do you have more than 40 total products or opt-ins? Are there many dynamic variables associated with the conversion? So again, just the thank you page isn't enough to tell exactly what they bought and how many and things, and what the value was and things like that. And might a conversion simply be measured by clicking a button? So what I mean by that is not that you have a button that then redirects to a thank you page, but a button that click itself, and maybe there is no redirect, that click itself is some sort of conversion. It doesn't have to be a purchase or lead or whatever, but it does something that's important that you want to track. And in that case, you need to do that with events. And do you want to run dynamic ads? And if so, you need events. So with standard events, I go back and forth calling it standard events and events because they're also custom events, but standard events are the 9 base events. Facebook provides 9 standard events to choose from, and this allows you to aggregate conversions across type. So basically, you've got a purchase event on every thank you page on your site where it's something that someone purchased. So then you could optimize for example, optimize and track across all purchases, or if you want to get granular, zero in on the very specific one. But if you don't sell a lot of product, you may want to optimize for any type of purchase across your site. It just gives you more volume. You can later optimize for purchase, registration, lead, etc. So the 9 standard events that Facebook has are search, view content, add to cart, add to wish list, initiate checkout, add payment info, purchase, lead, and complete registration. So essentially, this code would be added to those particular pages or those particular events, dynamic events, whatever they are, to indicate that event happened. So some standard event examples. Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. I was going to provide individual examples for these, but essentially with search, you could create just a general standard event for search in general, right? So then you could track how many searches have been made on your site, but you can also optimize for people who have made searches. You could get more granular and then actually find what searches people are making on your site. View content is the standard event, the standard event on your site for people viewing content. But we also have the whole process of going through add to cart, initiate checkout, add payment info, purchase, that especially the e-commerce sites deal with, right? So they didn't complete the purchase, but they went through 2 of the steps or 3 of the steps, 4 of the steps. It's good to track that and see how far they got. And then you also have the lead and complete registration, which in some cases may be one and the same. So event code and what it looks like. Again, this is something that you don't want to get too lost in the weeds here, but there's this FBQ code that's going to appear to indicate this standard event or this event is going to follow. And we're going to track something. So at a very basic level, it's just going to be that FBQ track and then whatever that event is. So view content, search, add to cart, etc. And making sure that it is the proper format indicating, say, add payment info. It's all one word like that. I think the caps are probably necessary in certain cases too. So Facebook's okay with 2 methods. I find this interesting. It seems that Facebook kind of reversed course on their preferred method in terms of where you add the event code. So you can add it inside the base pixel code. That's the way that initially Facebook required it, recommended it, suggested it. All of their tutorials I saw was inside the base pixel code. But you can also do it inside separate script code just outside of the header, which I know is different, and typically we expect it to be inside those head tags. But Facebook says they prefer this, and it actually makes some sense. Because again, this is the prior way. The base code is everything in here, but the green stuff is the standard event that we're adding. In this case, we want to track the add to cart. Okay, so we're putting it after the page view. But adding it outside the base code actually probably makes more sense, because the base pixel code should exist on every page between the head tags, right? So it's already across every page, and it can be difficult to edit that pixel on an individual page. So we're going to put it outside of that area. So we want to separate that event from the base pixel code. And then this makes it easier to edit that code on a page-by-page basis. So how does that look? And Facebook, again, this comes straight from the process of creating this, creating your pixel these days. If Facebook recommends it this way. So if a person is taken to a new page as a result of the action, you should set up the event to be sent on the load page, and on the page load. Example, after purchase, a person is taken to an order confirmation page. So to send events on the page load add the event code between script tags just below the head tag, the closing head tag. So this allows the event code to load along with the pixel code when the page loads. So as you can see here, you've got your base pixel code, closing head, and they throw in the script FBQ. We're going to track. This is a custom event in this case, but it doesn't really matter. No matter what, we're going to put our event, and they want that after the closing head tag now. So understand there are 3 types of event code depending on how complicated and sophisticated you want to get. We have basic. We just track the basic event. So there are no parameters to it. It's just we're just tracking all searches. We're tracking all registrations, whatever it is. But Facebook also recommends adding some basic parameters. So that's the second option, is recommended. So I guess they're really trying to steer you there. So with basic parameters, purchase value, it could be the content ID, like the name of the product. It could be the name, the ID. We'll go through the whole list of parameters here in a little bit. Then advanced, you get granular with all types of various parameters that you can dig into, where it's more than just adding one parameter. It could be 3, 4, or 5. So in terms of the basic, this is what it looks like. Okay, I'm just going to use purchase as the example each time. So this is going to be after that closing head tag. It's going to be enclosed by a script, and then just FBQ track purchase. That's it. So it's just a matter of notifying that a purchase happened if someone visited this page that we're on right now. Okay. But then with recommended, then we can start adding details. So once again, this will follow after that closing head tag, but we can include additional variables, like it could be the value, and we could include the currency as well. Then advanced, we could provide a whole bunch of info. So the content IDs that they're purchasing, content type, the value, and the currency. So now the one issue that many people are going to have if you are using events is that this may be dynamic, right? So it's not something that you can just automatically insert this code into there. And we'll get to that here in a minute. But parameters, here's kind of a rundown of what those parameters are, where you can provide more granular details to what happened with that event. You include value, currency, content name, content category, content IDs, content type, number of items, search string, so that's just for the search event, and status. And so for each of these, it also kind of provides a little bit of detail in terms of which event you can use it for, if it matters. But like content name, content category, you can use that for anything. But then and again, these are pulled from Facebook links that I'll get you as well within the replay notes, that goes event by event, saying what types of parameters we can use here too. So within the search, for example, you may provide value, currency, content category, content IDs, search string. Search string is going to be the one that's most common there. I don't know why it necessarily have a value to that, but you may determine that people who make a search, there's a particular value to that. Then initiate, checkout, add payment info, purchase, lead, and complete registration, and all the various parameters you may use. I think purchase is probably going to be the most complicated of all these, where you can provide the value, the currency, and then with dynamic product ads, you got to make sure you include the content IDs and content type too. Now, like I was referring to before, is you may be using buttons. So meaning that a button, when you click it, it doesn't necessarily redirect to a thank you page or something, but just clicking that button in itself is a conversion of some sort. So if a website action doesn't take a person to a new page, the event should be sent when the inline action happens. So example, a person clicks a submit order button, and in this case, add the event code to the HTML elements such as buttons. So in this case here, we've got a button ID, add to cart, button, add to cart, and then we've got what's going to happen when someone clicks on that button. And that's where it starts getting a little complicated, because what is the ID of your button? It all kind of depends on your database and things of that nature. But that's generally, basically, how you would handle the button scenario. So another example here is we got button on click equals the FBQ, and that's basically the event, and button text. So another option Facebook gives you is you could create a function that pushes the event. And this way, the advantage is if you have multiple HTML elements, you can call a single function when someone clicks any of them. So you don't have to define the individual on-click event. I know, it's getting very technical at this point. So to push the event, first of all, you need this script at the top that if someone does any kind of on-click, then we're going to track a purchase. And then we can have multiple buttons within it where that button is an on-click, one of them being buy now or buy as a gift. So if you're not a programmer, if you're not a coder, this is where you would pass this on probably to someone who does that for you, because this should make sense to them. So some other examples for view content, for example, we're tracking the view content event. And looks like they're viewing a product right now. That product is product ID 1234. The name of it is ABC leather sandal, and it's under the shoes category. Now the value, understand why they have the value of 50 cents here. This is not the value of the product. Otherwise, those would be some very cheap shoes. This is what, in this example, they're saying the value of this view is. That on average, based on the percentage of people who end up actually going through and purchasing, that is the value of this page view. And then in terms of search, so you include the search string. So what specifically did someone search for to get on this page? Once again, we're probably going to have to pull a variable in this case. Otherwise, you're going to be placing this manually on every page, and you just can't do that. So leather sandals is a product category, is product search. And then the content IDs that may appear within that search, and once again, the value of that search. Then report a lead event. So I think this is, again, important that we assign a value to all leads. So what's the value of just someone registering for someone, or someone providing an email address, or someone asking for more information, asking for an auto insurance quote? $40 could make sense in that case when they haven't even bought anything yet. And that takes us to dynamic values, which I said is going to be an issue because Facebook can't give one universal way of assigning value, since how your website, your database assigns value and names things are going to be different. So the value of purchase is based on an event. The value of the purchase based on that event may not always be the same. So you've got a standard event of purchase. Sometimes it could be $40. Sometimes it could be $100. Sometimes you bought 3 products. Sometimes you bought 1. So we can't just say when you hit this thank you page, it's always going to be worth $50. All right. So in this case, we need that value to be dynamic. And your website, though, may pass values through the database. So then Facebook could pull that value that was just passed through. So you can then substitute that value with the variable. So basically that variable in place of that parameter to make it dynamic. So this is where, if you use any of these, hopefully this will help you. So once again, you could go to anyone who codes your website to say, we've got to pull in this value here, that variable, and replace it with this parameter, right? Or we've got these examples for Shopify, Magento, WooCommerce, Squarespace, and BigCommerce. These are all the variables that they use for the purchase price, the value, okay, that would then be injected into that event. Now, Shopify, if you use Shopify, you're in luck. Because as we talked about this last week a little bit, and that's adding the pixel for Shopify is really simple. You just paste in your pixel ID. Well, if you use Shopify and you're like, oh, I got to add all these standard events, not necessarily. So Facebook tells you here, if you use the Facebook pixel integration by entering your pixel ID in the admin, then Facebook Pixel will automatically track the 6 most relevant standard events for e-commerce out of the 9 available. So view content, add to cart, initiate checkout, add payment info, purchase, and search. So Shopify is automatically doing that stuff for you already, pulling in whether it was a purchase and how much that purchase was for and what the product was that was being purchased. So that should be a big help to you to make it a little bit easier. Then it takes me to Pixel Caffeine. So if you want to, if you're looking for ways to simplify this and make it a little bit easier, this was another free plugin that I introduced to you last week. It's and there was a question about it earlier. There may be still some bugs in it. Not sure because it is brand new. But first of all, we can add new tracking, trigger on a page visit, but it doesn't have to be on a page visit. And you determine what that URL is, what that event is. You can then pass advanced data. And if you click on that, you can then pull it, tell Facebook, okay, then it's also going to be a $297 value. The name of the product is this. The product ID is this. It is actually a product. And they bought 1 item. So that's instead of you going in. So understand, this isn't an automated thing like Shopify. But with Pixel Caffeine, at least, is like, it prevents you from making errors in the variables and the parameters, and having to go in and update the code yourself. You're basically just providing the information here, and then Pixel Caffeine will inject that information for you to create that event. And again, this is referring to a question that came up earlier, like, well, how do you create a custom audience out of people who performed a certain event? This is the way I'd understand you do it with Pixel Caffeine. So I'm creating a custom audience, and then I click on, so I don't even enter in the URL to include in this case, although you could just put the base URL for your site. You can name it and whatnot, but then we're going to do a special filter, add new, include, and I'm going to do a user based on e-commerce behavior. And then we'll do purchase, content ID is, and I just enter in the content ID. So in this case, and I apologize, I don't remember who it was who asked this. Essentially what we're doing is creating an audience out of people who have made this particular purchase where there is no thank you page for that purchase. Because in the past, creating a website custom audience out of that would be pretty difficult. But now we can do it with these filters thanks to Pixel Caffeine, and hopefully that works for you. All right, where are we at here? Oh, wow. How are we at now? Like I said, this is a complicated issue. We're already at an hour. I want to talk about dynamic ads today, but that's going to have to wait until next week. But just real quickly, in the ad reports, if you want to sort out, customize your columns and whatnot to take into account some of these standard events or custom conversions, here's how. So go down to customize columns within your ad reports. And then first of all, we've got website, Facebook, pixel. So you go under conversions, website on the left. The first ones are going to be for website, Facebook, pixel. So that's just going to pull up all of those standard events. Okay, just the standard events you've created. So you can select individual, add payment info, add to cart, whatnot. But understand when you also include the variables, the Facebook will then pull that info up in your reports when using standard events. But you also do conversion value. And then when you do dynamic ads, you can also create a column for product ID or individual rows for product ID. And if you're doing custom conversions, that is also here within customized columns. Go under website, website custom conversions, and you can select the individual the individual custom conversion that you created. You also do a conversion value if you want to create a column for that as well. So here's an example of what that might look like after selecting multiple standard events or custom conversions. You get individual columns for each of those conversions or products. Okay. All right. Goodness. Hold on one second. So your assignment. So again, I want to keep this kind of basic just because there's so many different directions we could go with this. I just want to make sure, and you may not need the events or not at the level that some others may need it. So make sure you do this before next week's lesson. But first of all, create a custom conversion for a product with purchase value. Second, create a custom conversion for an opt-in. Third, create an event for a product with purchase value. Four, create an event for an opt-in. And understand, you can use a third-party tool like Pixel Caffeine, whatever you're using for this as well, if that makes it easier. I just want you to go through this process to start doing it. And also, I definitely want you to read through some of this documentation because I know how hard it is to explain some of this for everybody globally when it's going to be different from person to person in a lot of cases. And so I want you to go through some of this documentation that will be specific to certain software, certain circumstances that maybe for a programmer, for a coder that they can look at. But I just want you to make sure that you explore that as well. So what's next? One more. We're talking about optimization, tracking, and strategies. But yeah, that's undoubtedly going to have to include dynamic ads too. We want to make sure we get there. I think we're going to have another training program coming up, so be on the lookout. We'll get to that very soon. Stay tuned. And I'll definitely want to give you a little bit more info on Power Hitters Club. Once again, I try to mention this every week, but hopefully nobody in here is in Power Hitters Club Elite. Or if you are, you realize that you're going to have these replays available to you as well as part of membership. But we'll get to all the Power Hitters Club stuff later. All right. So it is Q&A time. Thanks for hanging with me there. Nicole asks, should we be creating custom Facebook ad landing pages for easier understanding of reporting? No, I don't really know why that would be necessary. Because I guess I might need your use case, Nicole, for why you think you should create a custom Facebook ad landing page for easier understanding of reporting. Because essentially when Facebook reports that a conversion happened, they know that person saw your ad or clicked an ad. So I don't know why necessarily that would be necessary. Tracy Lee asked, will we need to update the Facebook pixels installed on the website when we implement these event codes? Yeah, as I mentioned, I think the best way to do it is to leave the base pixel code there between the head tags, which should be on every page of your site, assuming that's the newer pixel code. I hope most people don't still have the old pixel code, but and then just place this individual code if you're doing it manually, right? Not using a third-party tool like Pixel Caffeine or whatever. If you're doing it manually, you should do it on the individual page. So, for example, in my WordPress, I have a box that can enter script that will automatically be injected. So, if you don't have such a box, which I think that's a global thing that everybody with WordPress has, but if not, undoubtedly there's a million plugins that you can do that with as well, where you can inject code on a page by page or post by post basis. So Sarah asks, so for the standard events, do you need to integrate the FBQ track code into the Facebook pixel code, or is it done automatically? So yeah, that's where I was saying you should add that separately, because that track is going to be, we're tracking on this particular page, we're tracking a conversion, we're tracking a lead, we're tracking a purchase, tracking a search. What is it we're tracking? That's what that code is doing, that standard event code is doing. So you'll need to add that. Now, again, that depends kind of on your software, because as we saw with Shopify, they're injecting a lot of that stuff automatically. So otherwise, we may need to be doing that manually or search out the FAQ of the software you're using. Okay, so Nikki says, we sell fitness services, or you can purchase from our website, but it takes you to another website, so Mind Body, to complete the purchase. Will the event still work for this? So, Nikki, here's my question. After completing the purchase, even though you may not have it redirect to your website, can you have it redirect to your website? If so, you can create either a custom conversion or standard event from that. One standard event you could particularly create, though, if all the purchase is happening on a different website, that could be difficult, right? But you could at least create an event for the click. That would be that dynamic button type situation where once they click on that, that is an event. So Facebook will notify you in your reports that you had a quote-unquote conversion, but you'll have to understand that's not necessarily a sale in that case, but someone who clicked on that button. So that's one way you could handle that. Kushal asks, can you share the PowerPoint slides in addition to the video replay and Power Hitters Club? Typically, I don't include the slides themselves. SlideShare used to allow me to embed private slides, and they don't do that anymore. So that makes it a little bit difficult for me. I have to be really careful about this stuff because I don't want to water down the value for you if all of a sudden this stuff is available everywhere else because someone decided they want everyone else to see it too. Yeah, so is there a way to make the purchase value the amount of order instead of a fixed value? Yep, that would be that dynamic value. You may have asked that before I talked about that dynamic value portion. So that's where you have to pull the variable based on the information passed by your database. And that's where I can't provide details because it depends on how your website does it. But once again, there was a specific slide on that. There's it's a resource that I will provide within the replay notes. We'll provide more details on that too. Hopefully the audio is okay for everybody. There are a couple people having issues, but just know that the replay won't have any issues. Let me see if I understand this. So Justin's asking, if you want to track a specific lead, such as a form fill or a phone call click, can you tell Facebook to track a click by click ID, click class, etc., so it only fires an event that you want it to? I think I know what you're talking about. And there would be like a CSS class type of situation where you can have that event fire. And specifically, I saw that too within Pixel Caffeine, by the way. So based on the CSS class, you can fire that event. Catherine asks, does the Pixel only track Facebook actions or all actions on the website? It tracks all actions on the website. It's only going to report the actions based on the people who saw or clicked on your ad, though. But within the Pixel, it'll show all activity. So it'll show all activity on the Pixel if you go to that page. But within the Facebook ad reporting, it's only going to tell you, okay, the people who saw or clicked on this ad, this is a number who actually ended up performing one of these events. Oh, good question. Is there a way to test to make sure a dynamic purchase value is working? You know what? I'd have to go back and look at the documentation on dynamic purchase value. I think, I would just, I'd have to go back and look. I don't want to say for sure. There has to be a good way, though. That's a good question. Hans asks, can I use Pixel Caffeine installed on WordPress, / blog to track events on my web shop from ePages. No, you'd need a special way. You'd need to be able to install your pixel and track everything and create your standard events and all that business within ePages as well. So really you'd need it in two different places. Assuming ePages isn't just a plugin on your website, which I assume you're saying there. I think I already answered that question. I think I'm trying to understand this question from Rachel. I do have a question. If you put in multiple content IDs for the custom audience filter, is it making an or and? Oh, requiring all IDs to register. Yeah, my understanding of the way that's working with that Pixel Caffeine plugin is you're saying that this is the specific action that they took, the one action that they took. So if you have all of those, that they would have needed to perform all of those actions. But once again, you might want to check if they have an FAQ on that. Oh, good. So Rachel also figured out her other issue with Pixel Caffeine from earlier. If you have WooCommerce, where you're putting the content IDs, which is the set SKU numbers, if you double click, it brings up all of your products. Awesome. Thank you, Nikki. So Chris asked, so if I don't have a purchase option, we don't have to know any of these. My next step is to register, but we send out the invoice manually. So tutoring, no. So there are, first of all, you can create custom conversions for leads, for registrations. It doesn't need to be a purchase event. You can do the same thing for events. It could be for leads. My guess, based on how you describe your business, is you really just need to create custom conversions based on people submitting their register when they register for something, from what I can tell. But yeah, let me know if I'm missing something there. Great. Yeah, I'm glad Rachel is thankful, because I feel like I was leading her on a wild goose chase there at times, but I think she's figured it all out. Lydia says it's Pancake Day in the UK, and due to the time differences, I've been busy flipping pancakes. So apologies if this has already been asked or is not relevant, but I'm currently running an ad campaign for my company's annual sale. So far, 25 conversions have been tracked, but I don't know how to show what direct revenue has been produced. Only 2 of these conversions has been directly tracked on Google Analytics. I work for a hotel company, and we're selling room nights across several different hotels. So each conversion would be for a different amount. I know that senior management want to see the bottom line. Is there a way to do this? All right, so it's difficult for me. First of all, Lydia, I'm not sure. Are you, because you say that Google Analytics is only reporting 2 conversions. Is that just 2 conversions that are referrals from Facebook, or 2 conversions in general? If it's 2 conversions in general, then there's obviously a discrepancy there. It makes me wonder if you're counting conversions wrong, or if you have the standard events on the wrong pages, or using custom conversions for the wrong pages. But otherwise, it sounds like you will probably want to use that dynamic value. So Facebook reports some of these dynamic parameters to you within the ad reports. So I'll provide some of that within the replay notes. Hopefully that'll help. Srini had a kind of unrelated question earlier, but I can get to now. So what's your take on why performing ads suddenly stop? The minute you scale, the sales stop coming. What's the best argument to justify this behavior? Let me say a couple things. It's normal, right? Let's understand, for example, you've got something that's working really, really well. You're running at a $5 a day budget. And so you decide, okay, I want to run that at a $500 a day budget. Well, when you're doing a $5 a day budget, Facebook is showing you to the people most likely to convert. So the very top. When you go to $500 a day budget, they've got to expand the net and go to people a little bit less likely to convert. So that's the first thing. And then the performance goes down naturally because fewer people are engaging with it because it's a wider net. That makes the CPM prices go up, which make all your costs go up. So that's one thing. Additionally, understand when something is working really, really well early, it's very difficult to sustain that because that volume of people who are so effective for you are now out of your funnel. They're no longer being targeted for this, hopefully. Hopefully you're excluding them. But even if you're excluding them, it means we're going now to the next group of people who are hopefully likely to convert. So eventually the well's going to start going dry. I always see it just as a natural thing in terms of scaling. You can never scale really one-to-one, right? Say, okay, I was getting a $1 conversion at $5 a day, so I'm just going to spend $5 million and keep getting $1 a day. That's crazy. Scaling is impossible, but those are kind of some factors involved in all that. Sarah asked, can you think of why a campaign tracking with custom conversion might be double counting conversions? There are actually lots of reasons, Sarah. And I think I actually responded to one of your emails the other day too, partially about this. But if I'm not mistaken, but if you may have created multiple custom conversions for the same page without knowing it. You may have created a custom, and I talked about this a little bit earlier about the URL includes, for example, for your custom conversion, that it might actually include traffic to multiple pages that you did not realize. An example of this for me, and I didn't even realize I was doing this, I previously was doing Facebook advertiser webinars for beginner, intermediate, and advanced. Guess what? I did one custom conversion for Facebook advertiser webinar just to see how many conversions I was getting for all of them combined. Well, by doing that, Facebook by default may report all conversions and includes that custom conversion, in addition to the specific custom conversion for the actual product they registered for. So that's one thing. Additionally, just make sure you're customizing columns in your ad reports to focus only on the conversion you want. If you are focusing only on the conversion you want, the double counting is probably happening as a result of picking up multiple pages. Like I talked about this earlier too, like thank you page. If you just said I was going to do URL includes thank you, well, you have a whole bunch of pages that may include thank you in it. Maybe even a blog post or something that said why you should say thank you. Silly things like that. So hopefully that helps. I know it's kind of difficult to pinpoint an issue, but that's often what I've seen. All right. Man, I'm losing my voice. Hopefully this has been very helpful. Again, my apologies. I feel like I need to apologize, and it's really difficult when we get into this technical stuff to get really detailed and still be helpful. So that's why I think a lot of this documentation will help too. Looks like we have one more last question potentially. So Rachel asked, when we add the pixel code, does it backdate or only from here on out? So Facebook doesn't know what happened on your site until the day the pixel is there. So there are two examples of this. If the pixel does not exist in your site, you put it on it today, it will start building from that point forward. If the pixel has been in your site for 6 months, but you never created an audience or did anything like that, it will backdate. It will go back in time. Now, it does not backdate the conversions. It backdates the custom audiences. So you can create, like if I could create a website custom audience today of anyone who visited my website during the last 6 months. What I couldn't do is create a special custom conversion today or standard event and then have Facebook tell me how many of those particular conversions happened over the last few months, right? So that code does not backdate. If that makes sense. So just for custom audiences. Okay. Hopefully that makes sense. Again, I will get you the replay here within a few hours, and lots of documentation I really encourage you to dig into. Some of it may seem really technical, and if you've got a programmer, developer, somebody who works with you, make sure that they have access to these articles too, because they need it. There will be some that will be software specific that you should know about too. But otherwise, yeah, we need to get all on the same page here with our pixel, with our standard events, with our custom conversions, and then we can start doing awesome things with it. So hope you enjoyed this. Hopefully you found this useful. Until next time, do awesome things. I'm out.